the first things I do when I get one of these old diesels is I clean up the engine compartment. It's going to give me a better idea of what I'm looking at in terms of repairs I need. And if you look at this car, there's a lot of detailing in here. You look over in there and you see all the pine needles in that air intake vent area. The drains are all plugged up. Look at the amount of dirt and dust on the inner fender panels. And then if you're looking down at the engine itself, there's not a lot of bad oil leaks here, but this is something that is just kind of an accumulation through here. You can see down here on the injection pump and along around this power steering pump down to the AC pump. It's just dirty and filthy. I am pleased that the engine isn't just soaked with oil, because then you've got a lot of possible oil leaks to deal with. But we'll do a complete cleanup on this, a complete engine detailing, and then I'm going to come back and show you the difference. I guarantee you are going to be amazed when we are finished with this and how nice it'll look when we're done. Okay, I think you're moving a little bit too fast. Okay, the engine's clean. Let's take a close look here. Look at the difference. Can you see how much nicer it is to work on this engine? Particularly when you start looking at problem areas, things like oil leaks that you're going to try to decipher, because almost all these diesel engines do have oil leaks. But look at the difference. Just as I zoom down in here to the injection pump, isn't that amazing? I actually feel like I want to work on this engine now. See, do you see the advantage of a clean engine? Now we're going to raise this engine up in the air, and then we'll show you another advantage. Now I get to show you the real advantage of cleaning your engine, particularly down the sides and underneath. You know, a lot of people think I only do this for cosmetic reasons. I've seen so many dirty engines in my life. It's just really frustrating, and it's kind of one of my pet peeves. And some people may feel, well, it's a waste of time to clean your engine. Well, that's okay. But if you're going to own one of these old diesels, it's a little bit different. It's not the same as a gas car, because these have a tendency to leak more oil than gasoline engines. So when you clean it, then you can do an inspection, an absolute thorough inspection of a lot of the components. You would not be able to see if they were all oily and dirty. And I'm gonna prove this in this next scene in this video, as I take you underneath here and show you some key things I spotted after cleaning the engine. And then the other thing is, once it's clean like this, you can drive it. Don't drive it too far, and don't drive it too fast, because if you drive it out on the freeway and come back, the oil could blow and spread, and you won't be able to isolate the problem. You need to get it, you drive it and get it hot enough, drive it for 15, 20 minutes, and maybe drive it 35 to 40 miles an hour, and then bring it back and get into the car, and using a flashlight and a mirror if you have to, get up in here and start looking, because the leaks will start in one isolated, location, and then they will start to spread. And if you wait too long, you're not going to be able to see where the oil leak is coming from. I get a lot of emails from people. They even send me pictures and say, hey, look at this, my engine's leaking oil, what do you think it is? Well, you can't tell where it is by looking at it if the engine is all dirty, because once again, oil travels and you can be fooled. On a number of occasions, people have thought that they had a rear main seal leak when it wasn't. It was leaking out of the valve cover, running down the side and dripping here, so you thought, oh look, I got a rear main leak. No, you couldn't tell that until you completely clean the engine, and then you could spot the oil leaking down the side of the block from the valve cover, and then you could sigh a big sigh of relief that, oh man, it's not a rear main seal. So let's take a close look. I'll show you a couple examples to prove my point. This right here is a transmission oil cooler flex hose that goes into the bottom of the radiator. And if you look closely, you can see it's starting to crack and deteriorate. I've actually seen these hoses leak from the inside out through deterioration of the hose itself. So these are going to need to be replaced. See that? That's a good preventative measure. These are not expensive hoses, but I would have not seen that. If this were dirty and oily from engine oil, there's no way I would have spotted the deterioration of this hose right here. So let's go look at another area. This is another common leak area on the turbo diesel 5-cylinder engines. This is the downpipe. This is the turbo oil drain tube. Oil comes out of the turbo and drains back into the pan, And that seal right there will age and harden. Now it looks like someone has spread some silicone on there to try to stop that leak. So this is something that I'm going to keep an eye on. You see, now that it's clean, I'll be able to spot a little seepage of oil coming out of there very soon if this is a problem area right here. This is the front crank seal right here. This is another area that you need to be concerned about on high mileage engines. That seal will start to leak oil, and it'll actually fly out and get on the bottom of the alternator. It'll get over here on the subframe. Look at how clean that is up in there now. Now I'll be able to keep an eye on that. In the next 100 to 200 miles of driving, I'll come back in and look at this area. If I see wetness right in here, then I know I'm probably going to have an issue with that crank seal. When you do clean your engine, you're not going to be able to get every spot of oil. This is a good example right here. These oil cooler hoses are another area that you have to keep a close eye on. You have one that comes into the bottom of the oil cooler here and one into the top. Now you might say, well, it's got to be leaking here. No, not necessarily. Look, it's oily up here. So it could be leaking out of the fitting right up in this area, or it could be leaking out right here. The only way you're going to be able to tell is you're going to have to clean it off. So you're going to have to do some isolated cleaning. I'll wipe this down and I'll get it, I don't have to get it real clean, but I'm going to wipe it down so it's not damp. And then now I'll go ahead and drive it, and then I'm going to keep a close eye to see where that oil is coming from. This is another area you want to keep your eyes on. Failure of these hoses can lead to catastrophic engine failure because of the high volume of oil that's pumping through them. This is the oil filter housing. That's what your filter goes in. And you can see it's bolted to the block right here. You have an aluminum housing and a cast iron block, so you have dissimilar metals, and the gasket right along this edge, due to expansion and contraction, will start to leak over time. And this could become a very bad leak right in here. We're leak around this side as well. So this is something you want to keep your eye on. This is one that if you have one of these diesels for any length of time, you'll probably have to replace. And then over here, looking up in this area, if you have a leaking valve cover gasket, a lot of times the oil will come down from above in the back of the engine. That's the most common area of leak. So if you're having valve cover gasket leak problems, be sure and check out my on-demand video, which explains some of the modifications you may have to make to the valve cover to really solve that problem. The other thing you want to do is keep an eye out for transmission leaks. I have a number of videos where I've talked about leak issues with these automatic transmissions. So I'm not going to go over it in detail in this video, but the main thing is right here. If you have a seal leak out of the front of the transmission, you can be leaking a lot of fluid, and it'll come out right here through these fins and drip on this crossbar in the 126 or straight on the ground in some of the other models. You'll have other issues with the gasket and some of the fill tubes and so on, but this is the one you want to keep a real eye on because you can't ignore it. If it starts to leak, you're going to have to repair it. This is a conclusion of the buying an old diesel oil leak video, rolling after 3 seconds. So that's a brief overview of some of the most common oil leaks on these older Mercedes diesels. It's not all the leaks, but from our experience, these are some of the more common ones that you'll have to deal with. And these you definitely want to fix yourself. If you were to take, let's say, one of these diesels with 250,000 miles on it, these engines will go many, many thousands of miles, but the seals won't. So don't let anybody tell you, oh no, you can drive these 1,000,000 miles and never have to do anything. They're not telling you the truth. Seals age, heat, causes seal failure. So you will have to deal with some oil leak issues. Now, the good thing about this is, is my website in the business I have is highly specific for these old diesels. We have kits that I've developed over the years on how to do this yourself. That includes front crank seal replacement kits with special tools and all the parts you need, as well as the oil filter housing. We have new oil cooler lines and special wrenches to install them yourself. Valve cover gaskets. all the hoses that you're going to need. We carry that on our website, and a lot of them come with instructions on how to install the part or the part yourself. And then I do have a manual on why does my diesel leak. And in that manual, I go over a lot of other issues related to oil leaks. So don't be afraid to tackle these leaks. They're not, it's not rocket science. But once again, the first thing is clean that engine so you can find the leaks.